Stop. Stop scrolling. Stop whatever you were about to do in the next 10 seconds. Because what unfolded in a public square in Geneva over the weekend may turn out to be the single most awkward moment of Meghan Markle's entire post-royal career. And the most extraordinary part of it is that nobody had to lift a finger against her. She walked into the moment on her own, in head-to-toe Armani, and stood in it for the cameras until the cameras quietly drifted away. Picture the scene. A broad, fountain-flanked square in central Geneva, directly outside the European headquarters of the United Nations. A serious international stage. Meghan in a black Giorgio Armani trouser suit, hair pulled severely back. Alongside her, the Director General of the World Health Organization, a formal address to mark the opening of a major international health gathering, the kind of stage every public figure dreams about being booked onto. The kind of stage that, in theory, transforms a celebrity into a stateswoman. And then look at the wide shots. Look at the footage that has now been circulating across royal commentary for days. Cars driving past in the background. Tourists wandering through the square without breaking stride. A woman pushing a pram who does not turn her head as she passes the staging area. Two women who appeared across the road behind the lectern, refusing to wait for the speech to finish. The signature backdrop of one of the most photographed cities in international diplomacy, with virtually nobody actually stopping to watch the future global stateswoman delivering her message of a lifetime. Tonight, I am going to walk you through every gossip beat of this story. The empty square. The Instagram post Meghan published less than 24 hours before the speech that managed to torpedo the speech before it had even started. The wardrobe estimate floating around in the press that has to be seen to be believed. The 4-year-old daughter who somehow keeps ending up in the center of the marketing frame. The big American morning show that completely ignored the speech and led instead with the picture of the daughter. The unforgettable verdict from the senior British journalist who flew to Geneva specifically to be there in person and wrote one of the most carefully damning royal columns of the entire year. And the brutal proximity of one other royal woman on one other tour just 1 week earlier who pulled crowds that Meghan would have given anything to have stood in front of. So get comfortable, pour yourself something strong. Because this is the kind of story you only get once or twice a year. The kind where the contradictions are so loud, so visible, so impossible to talk your way out of, that even the friendly press genuinely does not know what to do with it. Let us start with the booking itself, because the booking on paper was a triumph. Meghan was scheduled to stand alongside Dr. Tedros Adhanom, the Director General of the World Health Organization, at a high-profile event timed to coincide with the opening of the World Health Assembly. This is, by every honest measurement, an A-list global stage. The kind of stage that takes years of careful charitable work to access. The kind of stage that is supposed to convert a personal brand into a public mission. Senior journalists in royal commentary openly framed this as Meghan's Angelina Jolie moment. The chance, perhaps the chance, to break out of celebrity gossip and into the territory of serious humanitarian respectability. It was, in the careful words of one British journalist actually there in the square, heavyweight stuff. Meghan, in his view, should have been laser-focused on the opportunity it offered her to represent herself as a serious person. Geneva is a serious city. It is full of serious people. The international aid community based there is under enormous current pressure. Budgets are being cut, jobs are being lost. Long career professionals are watching the programs they built being hollowed out. Into that very specific atmosphere walked Meghan in her lilac coat, ready, in theory, to claim the space. And here's the part that genuinely matters about the booking, because the gossip world should pause and acknowledge it before piling in. Bookings of this scale do not happen by accident. They happen because a campaign has chosen you. They happen because an institution has chosen you. They happen because somebody on the international diplomatic and aid circuit has decided you bring more value to the platform than the platform brings to you. So when a booking like Geneva lands on a calendar, the team around the figure has every reason to treat it as a defining moment. The right preparation, the right messaging, the right advance work, the right social media plan in the days leading up to it. All of that in any normal communications operation would have been calibrated to the second. The booking, in other words, was a gift. And the question every observer is now asking is, what on earth that gift was traded for 24 hours before the curtain went up? And there is a wider gossip beat sitting underneath the Geneva booking that very few commentators have flagged. The institutional framing of the event was co-hosted by Archwell Philanthropies, the same Archwell Foundation that, by late 2025, had quietly closed. So the very name of the partner organization on the formal billing of the Geneva event was an institutional ghost. A flagship philanthropic vehicle that no longer exists in the way the public was once told it did. That detail, on its own, would not necessarily be a scandal in the routine operation of public charity branding. But placed alongside everything else, it tells you something about the structural state of the Sussex mission. The brand still books the stages. The institutional infrastructure underneath the brand is no longer what it was. The contrast between what is on stage and what is behind the stage is, by now, very wide indeed. Now to what actually happened in that square, because the speech itself, by every honest professional assessment, was perfectly delivered. She hit her marks, she did not fluff a syllable, she kept the cadence tight, the eye contact controlled, the gestures measured. As a piece of pure platform craft, she did the job. If you only ever evaluated the performance on technical execution, you would say it was professional. But the wide shots told a story the performance could not control. There's a particular kind of awkward that creeps into a public address when the speaker is impeccably dressed, the venue is impeccably staged, the lectern is impeccably positioned, and yet behind it you can see a city carrying on without you. Geneva did not stop for Meghan. Tourists did not put down their phones and pivot toward her. The square did not fill up. The footage that has now been screen grabbed and clipped and reshared across royal commentary shows a speaker addressing a thin in-person audience, with the city going about its evening directly behind her shoulder. One commentator joked, with some accuracy, that if you stripped out the staff and the media required to be there for work, what would have been left in the square was the flagpole. The frame-by-frame analysis from the royal commentary community has now become a genre of its own. Observers have noted the woman pushing a pram who walked past the lectern without breaking stride. The pair of women who appeared to cross the road behind the stage who did not wait for the speech to finish. The drivers, visible at the edges of the shot, who carried on their evening commute without slowing. The tourists who can be seen on the wider angles photographing not the speaker but the famous broken chair monument that has stood in the square for years. The vast majority of the people captured on tape were not, in any honest accounting, there for Meghan. They were there because the square is the square. They walked past her the way you would walk past any speaker in any public square in any major European city. As one waggish observer pointed out, if Meghan were truly the security threat the official entourage seemed to suggest, then where, exactly, were the crowds being held back from? There was nobody to hold back. There was just a square, doing what squares do. There is also a question that several commentators raised with quiet glee, and it has become one of the more pointed gossip threads of the weekend. If nobody is there, why does Meghan need security? The footage shows people walking by, traffic continuing, no crowd to control, no perimeter to defend. The optics of an enormous private security operation around a speaker who is being passed by in real time by women with prams is, in pure visual terms, not the optics of a global humanitarian moment. It is the optics of a star insisting on a star's footprint at an event the audience has already declined to treat as a star turn. And once you see that gap, you cannot unsee it. Now, here is the honest framing on this. A small in-person crowd at a Geneva speech is not, in itself, the entire story. Serious international policy events frequently have modest in-person turnouts. The audience that matters for an event of this kind is supposed to be the wider audience reached through coverage, through live stream, through the diplomatic and corporate guest list, through the global media reach of the institutions involved. So, in fairness, an empty square does not, on its own, settle anything. What makes the empty square land the way it does is the brutal proximity of the contrast. Because while Meghan was standing in a quiet square in Geneva in front of a small live audience, just 1 week earlier, the Princess of Wales had stepped out of a car alone in Reggio Emilia, Italy, to roaring crowds who had traveled 3 hours simply to see her. People driving in from across the region, real, organic, unfaked enthusiasm, local language spoken back to the locals, fluently. A reception that royal historians described as one of the most natural and purposeful tours in recent memory. The same fortnight, the same general continent, 2 royal women on 2 distinct projects, drawing 2 completely different responses from the public. Let us actually compare what those 2 trips looked like, beat by beat, because the comparison is genuinely extraordinary. Catherine in Italy was on a working visit centered on early childhood development research, a subject she has spent more than a decade quietly building expertise in. She arrived alone, with no William alongside her, on a fact-finding mission organized around encounters with educators and children. She got down on the floor with toddlers, she made pasta on camera, she spoke fluent Italian to the children, a detail many viewers genuinely did not know was part of her background. The reception in the streets was such that royal correspondents struggled to find historical parallels for the scale of the welcome. Royal historian Hugo Vickers, a famously cautious commentator, described the trip publicly as a kind of perfect royal tour, with absolutely nothing about it that looked staged or manufactured. Meghan, in Geneva, was on a single ceremonial address attached to a launch event the underlying campaign had first unveiled in New York City a little over a year earlier. The Armani suit, the diamond and emerald necklace, the carefully styled hair, the lectern positioned in front of the famous broken chair monument so that the staging looked statesmanlike from the camera angle. And, behind it all, a square that politely declined to fill up. One project arrived at its setting with a decade of accumulated credibility behind it. The other arrived hoping that the setting itself would do the credibility lifting. The first worked. The second, as the footage showed in real time, did not. That is the contrast that is now impossible to escape, because the public has seen them both, side by side, in the space of a single week. The same medium has carried both images, and the contrast does not flatter the side that has spent more years and more dollars trying to manufacture exactly that kind of warmth. But the empty square, in the end, is not the worst gossip beat of this story. The worst beat is one single Instagram post, published less than 24 hours before Meghan stepped up to the Geneva lectern. And it is the post that has the entire serious commentariat openly asking the same question. Does she really not see the problem? On the Saturday, the day before the speech, Meghan posted to her 4.5 million Instagram followers an image taken inside a walk-in closet. In the photograph, Meghan is wearing a lilac coat, mirror selfie style. Crouching at her feet, back to camera, red hair in a ponytail, is her 4-year-old daughter. A men's blazer hangs prominently on a rail to the right. Behind them, in the mirror's reflection, dozens upon dozens of garments are visible, packed tightly on rails. The British journalist on the ground in Geneva, in his subsequent column, estimated that there was close to $250,000 of clothing visible in that single frame. He acknowledged he could be wrong. He said it could be more. Hold that image in your head, because the details are everything. Read the post quickly, and it looks like a casual moment. Mother and daughter, selfie, mom getting ready. Read it more carefully, and the framing tells you something else entirely. The Armani jacket that Meghan would wear to the Geneva event the following evening is angled prominently within the shot. The black shoes she would step out in are visible in the same composition. The caption, presented as a tender mother-daughter moment, doubled in the assessment of multiple observers as a sneak preview of the next day's red carpet outfit. It is worth being very precise about how that framing works, because the trick is subtle, and the trick is the entire point. A 4-year-old crouched at her mother's feet, by ordinary parenting instinct, is the center of the frame. The eye goes to the child. The viewer registers warmth, intimacy, a mother-daughter moment caught in passing. Only on a second look does the rest of the image come into focus. The Armani jacket, hanging precisely where the eye can find it. The wider rail of clothes establishing the scale of the wardrobe. The mirror selfie composition that puts the lilac coat in clean profile. Every element of that composition is a marketing choice. And the marketing choice is built around a small child. There is one more detail that the closer observers picked up on, and it is the kind of thing that, once you see it, you cannot pretend you did not see. The royal commentary writer behind a popular account quietly pointed out that the small Mama's Little Helper framing of the post was, in the end, a textbook merchandising shot. The shoes Meghan would wear to the speech, angled visibly in the frame. The Armani jacket hung where the camera could capture it. The lilac coat already on Meghan's body, already in selfie profile. If you compared the post to the photographs of Meghan on stage in Geneva the following evening, the wardrobe planning was effectively pre-announced in the closet. The audience had already seen the outfit. The audience had already seen the wardrobe context. And the audience had already seen the 4-year-old as the warm, soft prop that made the marketing land as a family moment rather than as a product shoot. The senior British journalist who flew to Geneva specifically to cover the event, Tom Sykes of the Daily Beast's Royalist Substack, was so taken aback by the post that he devoted his entire column to it. The Daily Mail showbiz correspondent Alison Boshoff, who joined Sykes on his podcast the following day, admitted she had been out the night before in Cannes when she checked Instagram and initially wondered whether she had simply drunk too much rose wine. No, she said, there it was. Two of the most experienced royal correspondents covering this couple, both of whom have written about them at close range for years, both reacting with genuine disbelief to a single Instagram post. Sykes laid out the imagined conversation that should, in theory, have happened. Suppose, he said, you walked into the office of any communications professional on Earth and you said, tomorrow I am going to be doing a big event at the United Nations in Geneva, the World Health Organization, the biggest thing of my whole life, my chance to be Angelina Jolie. Do you, or do you not, think I should post something on social media tonight? And do you think a good thing to post would be a picture of me in my dressing room, surrounded by clothes whose value probably equates to 25 times the annual salary of the typical person that most people think the World Health Organization is there to help? No communications professional on Earth, Sykes argued, would have advised that post, which leaves only two possibilities. Either the Sussex operation is not asking for that advice, or it is and the advice is being ignored. And Sykes's working theory, drawn from years of conversations with people who have worked with and around the couple, is that the second is the more likely. He has been told repeatedly by people in a position to know that the Sussexes are essentially impossible to advise. They do what they want. The Alison Boshoff podcast appearance the following day added another layer of texture, because Boshoff is one of the most experienced showbiz correspondents working in British print, and her reaction was not measured commentary. It was genuine, on tape. Disbelief. She described checking Instagram from Cannes the night before the speech and thinking, no, this cannot be the post she has just put up the night before the biggest moment of her humanitarian career. The fact that two journalists at that level of the British press were independently arriving at the same shocked reaction and then comparing notes about it on a podcast is itself the kind of detail that tells you the operation has finally crossed a line that even friendly observers cannot defend. That diagnosis is the heart of why this story keeps repeating, because if the closet post had been a one-off, you could write it down as a bad day. The whole pattern of Sussex public relations, across years and across continents, suggests it is not a one-off. It is the operating system. And the operating system is, by every available description from people who have worked with or alongside the couple, allergic to the kind of careful, disciplined, advanced work that an event of this scale requires. The list of senior communications professionals who have rotated through the Sussex orbit over the past several years is, on its own, a small case study. Sarah Latham, recruited from the Clinton world, Catherine St. Laurent, the first chief of staff in the United States, who lasted less than a year, Jason Knauf, whose name has been linked to the most consequential leaks of the entire post-royal era, Christian Jones, Toya Holness, a revolving door of credentialed press operatives, each of whom arrived expecting to bring discipline, and most of whom either departed quickly or moved on to other royal courts. The pattern is consistent. The professionals come in, the professionals offer their advice, the advice runs into the operating mode, and then the professionals are gone. The chair empties. The next candidate is recruited. The cycle begins again. That is not a structural accident. That is the choice the operation has made, again and again, about what kind of advice it is willing to take. Sykes also laid out what should have been done instead, and it is worth dwelling on because it shows you just how avoidable the mess was. Imagine, he said, that the Sussex team had used the entire weekend to drive attention toward Geneva. Imagine a post on the Saturday saying, "I am flying to Geneva tomorrow for the most important speech of my year. Here is the link to the campaign. Here is what I want you to read. Harry is not coming with me. Here is why." Imagine the audience arriving at Sunday evening already primed for the message. Instead, the audience arrived at Sunday evening with the previous night's image of a closet still on their screens. The signal got drowned in the noise that the messenger herself had created. And then came the punctuation mark of the entire weekend, delivered by an American morning television show that decided, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps not, to write the final verdict. Good Morning America, the American network ABC. By the morning after Meghan's Geneva speech, the ABC News social account was not leading with footage of the address. It was not leading with the Director General of the World Health Organization. It was not leading with the speech itself. It was leading instead with a Good Morning America story, headlined around Meghan giving fans another rare look at life with her 4-year-old daughter. Read that again. The big global stage on Sunday night, the closet photograph on Saturday night, and the network coverage on Monday morning ignored Sunday entirely and went straight to the daughter from Saturday. That single editorial choice is its own piece of gossip. ABC, remember, is a network Meghan has historically prized as a relationship. Good Morning America is the kind of slot a publicist would, in normal circumstances, kill to land. So the fact that the ABC News brand chose, on its main social channel, to amplify the Saturday closet image rather than the Sunday Geneva address is not a small editorial decision. It is a tell. It is the network telling everybody watching in real time what content actually drives engagement on the Sussex page. And the content that drives engagement by the network's own observed behavior is not the speech, it is the daughter. That is the engagement economy operating in plain view. The closet photograph drove more clicks, more comments, more shares, more saved bookmarks than the speech ever could. So the network chose the closet over the speech because the network is in the business of getting clicked. And in choosing the closet, the network confirmed on the record what the speech the previous evening had implicitly criticized, that the algorithm rewards exactly the content the speaker had spent her speech criticizing. That if you put a famous person and a small child in the same frame, the audience will choose that frame over almost any other image you give them. That image of a 4-year-old is, in the cold language of the platform, worth more than a stateswoman. Now ask yourself the strategic question. If you are the team around Meghan, and you have just watched ABC pull the engagement away from your serious moment and toward the daughter, what do you do next? Do you stop posting the daughter, or do you double down on the daughter? Because the daughter is what works. The pattern of the last several years suggests one answer. And the pattern, by every available indication, is not about to change. And here is the wider commercial reality, because the gossip beats only fully make sense when you understand the pressure underneath them. By widely reported accounts, the Sussex lifestyle in Montecito requires somewhere in the region of $6 million a year just to maintain the basic infrastructure, the security operation, the mortgage, the staff, the schools. That number does not include any premium living, any travel, any new ventures. It is the floor, and the income side of that ledger has, by every available report, been under genuine strain. The As Ever brand has not been the engagement driver it was supposed to be. Sales coverage has been mixed at best. The Netflix relationship cooled significantly. The Spotify deal ended some time ago. The Hollywood doors that were supposed to swing open after the Palace departure have, for the most part, stayed stubbornly shut. In that context, every Instagram post that includes a 4-year-old daughter and a designer outfit and reliably drives a wave of engagement is not a casual family moment. It is, by structural design, a commercial asset on a balance sheet that needs every commercial asset it can find. Once you see the operation that way, the closet photograph stops looking like a misjudgment. It starts looking like a perfectly rational play, executed by a team that is doing exactly what the numbers tell it to do, even when the optics of the timing make the press wince. There is one more gossip beat that explains why all of this happened in the first place, and it concerns the relationship between Lilibet, the 4-year-old, and her older brother Archie, who is 7. Sykes drew attention in his column to an observation that several other commentators have quietly echoed. Archie, at 7, appears increasingly to be out of the picture in the family's commercial output. Lilibet, at 4, is everywhere. Sykes raised the obvious possibility, framed carefully and reasonably. An older child has, perhaps, begun to indicate that he no longer wants to be photographed and posted. A 4-year-old has not yet acquired the language to express the same preference. That is not idle speculation. That is a senior royal correspondent looking at the public output of an entire family and noticing which child appears in which content. And the pattern, once you see it, is hard to unsee. It is worth noting how much that observation has rippled through the wider royal commentary world over the past few days, because it has hit a nerve. There is something quietly chilling about the pattern when you put it next to the dates and ages. Archie is photographed less and less. The brother who can articulate a preference appears in fewer frames. The sister who cannot yet say no appears in more frames, and in more carefully composed frames, as the months go by. The optics of that, dressed up as casual family content, is precisely the kind of thing that makes serious observers reach for the historical parallels. And the historical parallels, by and large, do not have happy endings. Sykes also reached for the historical parallels because the historical parallels are unavoidable. Andre Agassi's memoir Open, written, as it happens, by the same ghostwriter who produced Harry's memoir Spare, devoted an entire arc to Agassi's lifelong resentment of a father who forced him into a public career before he was old enough to consent. The Michael Jackson childhood under Joe Jackson became a template that we now reference whenever a public family blurs the line between a child's private development and a parent's public brand. The pattern, across decade after decade of public life, is consistent. Adults who monetize their children's youth tend, over time, to produce deeply unhappy adults. That is not a tabloid jab. That is a recurring feature of the social history of celebrity. Pull back from the individual beats now and look at the wider shape of the gossip. The Sussex Post-Royal project, by its own design, depends on being taken seriously when it claims to be serious, while also reliably converting attention into engagement, into clicks, into product sales. Those two objectives keep colliding. Every time a serious stage is booked, the same operating mode that drives the brand also drives the contradiction. The Centabale governance collapse in early 2025 did this for the African charity Harry founded in his mother's memory. The Archwell Foundation closure last year did it for the philanthropic vehicle that was supposed to be the institutional spine of the entire post-royal mission. The Invictus Games financial questions are doing it for the project that was supposed to be untouchable. And this week, Geneva did it for the latest cause. Let me dwell on that pattern for a moment, because once you see it, the whole post-royal arc reads differently. Start with Centabale. The charity Harry co-founded as a young man in 2006 to honor his mother's memory, the single best argument for many years that he was a serious humanitarian rather than a gossip figure. In early 2025, the entire governance structure imploded in public view. The chair publicly accused Harry and the board of bullying. Trustees resigned. Harry stepped down as patron of his own founding charity, concluding in his own words that his relationship with the chairman had deteriorated beyond repair. The Charity Commission of England and Wales launched an inquiry. By every honest account, the public collapse damaged Harry's reputation as a serious philanthropist in a way that may not fully recover. Move to Archewell. The flagship philanthropic foundation the Sussexes built in California as the institutional centerpiece of their post-royal mission. The body that was supposed to convert celebrity goodwill into measurable impact. By late 2025, the Archewell Foundation had quietly closed. There is no other word for it. The vehicle that was supposed to be the legacy of the entire departure simply ceased to be. That is not a small footnote. That is the institutional spine of the brand vanishing without a successor. Move to Invictus, the international sporting competition for wounded service personnel, founded by Harry and protected for years by a halo of moral seriousness that almost nobody dared to puncture. By 2026, that halo had begun visibly to come off. A credentialed American airline pilot and former medical finance professional, Rachel Maxwell, working with the journalist Paula Froelich at her Substack newsletter, The Scoop, and at the American network News Nation, has spent months publishing serious financial questions about the operation. Boeing, the marquee corporate sponsor, has, by recent reporting, ended its sponsorship relationship. The Australian government declined to renew $9 million in funding for Invictus Australia after the Sussexes tour there. The investigative author Tom Bauer, in his book Betrayal, made explicit financial allegations in print that the publisher's lawyers cleared and that have not, to this writer's knowledge, been successfully challenged in court. Sponsor after sponsor walking, funding stream after funding stream pulled, public scrutiny intensifying. And now, Geneva. A new stage, a new cause, the same operating mode, the same predictable result. The pattern is not random. The pattern is the structural cost of choosing personal brand maximization as the default operating mode. Every time a serious subject is taken on, the operating mode that drives the brand inevitably drives the contradiction. There is no way out of the loop except to change the operating mode itself. And nothing in the public record suggests that the operating mode is about to change. There is, perhaps, the most painful note of all, for anyone who once hoped Harry and Meghan could become the rescue mission for a generation of post-royal philanthropy. Sykes ended his column with an observation that almost reads as grief on behalf of the platform Meghan once had. There is a version of reality, he wrote, in which Harry and Meghan could have been genuinely effective advocates on serious global causes. The platform of a working senior royal deployed thoughtfully could have moved real legislation. It could have shifted real corporate behavior. It could have generated real funding. Instead, that platform was traded in, and the operation that replaced it has, by his judgment, squandered the goodwill required to use the smaller platform that remained. That is the deepest charge against Geneva. Not that the speech was poorly delivered, it was not. Not that the cause is unworthy. The charge is that the messenger, by her own choices the night before, hollowed out her ability to deliver the message credibly. And once that goodwill is hollowed out, every subsequent serious booking lands a little smaller, a little less convincingly, a little more thinly attended. The friendly press writes the careful column. The wider press writes the closet headline. The morning shows go straight to the daughter, and the message, whatever the message was supposed to be, fails to leave the square. So here is where we land. A trip to Geneva, an A-list global stage, an impeccable Armani trouser suit, a small in-person audience that did not pause its evening, an Instagram post from the night before, featuring a 4-year-old daughter and $250,000 of clothing visible in a single shot. A respected British correspondent flown in to cover the moment, going home and writing one of the most carefully damning royal columns of the year. An American morning show that ignored the speech entirely and led with the daughter. And, hovering across the entire weekend, the recent memory of another royal woman on another continent, drawing crowds who traveled 3 hours just to see her step out of a car. You cannot manufacture 2 decades of consistent behavior by booking a stateswoman moment one Sunday evening in Switzerland. You cannot lecture a global audience about being intentional with every post if your previous post was a wardrobe shot featuring your 4-year-old as the focal point. You cannot have it both ways. And the entire serious commentary on this story, from journalists with no axe to grind and decades of reporting behind them, has now openly converged on that point. Does she really not see the problem? The answer, by every available piece of evidence, is that perhaps she does not. And that may be the most quietly devastating piece of all. There is one more dimension to all this that the gossip world will not let go of, and that is the awkward state of the marriage itself. By widely reported accounts, the Sussex marriage has been under serious strain for some time. The two of them are increasingly seen apart at public events. The body language at the few joint appearances they have made over the past 12 months has been the subject of dissection across the royal commentary world. Glossy magazines like Town & Country and Harper's Bazaar have run pieces insisting that the couple are stronger than ever, but observers have noted the conspicuous absence of Harry from Geneva entirely. He did not travel. He did not appear in the supporting images. He did not feature in the social posts around the trip. For an event that was supposed to be the biggest of his wife's year, his absence was, in the careful language of the press, notable. That absence is gossip in its own right, because the Sussex brand was, for years, built on the premise of the unit Harry and Meghan, the team, the partners, the two against the institution, and the unit, by every available indication, is no longer functioning as a single visible operation in the way it once did. Whether that is logistics, scheduling, strain, or something deeper, the public is now being given a steady drip of solo Meghan appearances and solo Harry appearances rather than the joint visual presence that the original brand strategy was constructed around. That shift on its own would be a story. Placed alongside the closet photograph and the empty square, it becomes a chapter. The William and Catherine tour of Australia is now on the horizon. The contrast between how that tour will be conducted and what has just unfolded in Geneva will, by every available indication, be sharp. Stay sharp yourself, stay watching, because the story that began in Italy a week ago and that found its punctuation in Geneva this weekend is not over. It is, by every honest reading, only just entering the chapter that everybody else has been able to see coming for a very, very long time. I will see you very soon.